What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I am your host, Wes Tankersley. Hey, before we get started here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit a 5-star review if you're listening to this on Apple Podcast and share it? Also, if you could just take a screenshot of it as you're listening to it and post it on your social media, tag me, and I'll give you a great shout out. It really helps the podcast to grow. We just passed the 1,500 mark on downloads. I've got 31 episodes, and I just put out my episode 31 with Mikail Farrar. We're going to talk about that. We're going to do that bonus coverage, and we're also going to talk a little bit about what's going on right now with me, as I had some situations that are kind of out of my control. One of the things that has been kind of interesting, the way that things have gone for me, is I had a person who was talking bad about me and really no reason to do so. So, when that happens, I kind of look through some quotes and kind of think about it, kind of hash it out. And I actually lost sleep over this one, which was kind of annoying because it's out of my control. I can't make any connection to what's going on with them. And it made it pretty tough for me to kind of get over, and I'm still not over it. And that's one of the things that I deal with. I deal with it a lot better now than I used to. I would have blown up. I would have freaked out. I did have a little bit of a going off tantrum rant type deal with one of my close friends about the situation because it really did bug me. When someone attacks the way that you are and your beliefs and things like that, or who you are just in general, it always really bothers you because it's a character attack, correct? For those of you who know me, you know that I was an athlete in high school, if you personally know me, and you know that, I probably was a little cocky when I was in high school. Probably a little arrogant, but my life changed after I decided to not play sports anymore, decided not to do anything along those lines. And I have not been called arrogant or cocky or anything like that for a very long time. I don't even know if they even called me that in high school. They may have thought it, but I never personally got it to my face or anything like that. Someone did that. They said that I tattled on them. They said that I disrespect women. They said, it just was a very big character attack. And the hardest part for me about that is a long time ago, I realized that I changed something. I was sitting in a church service one day and they were talking about a Bible verse. And I actually have gone back to this Bible verse quite a bit because, when you're wronged by someone, you start to think about what they're going through, what they're thinking, how their process is, and how they're processing those types of things. And so when I was sitting in this, I was going through an issue with a new job that I had started, and the boss was told some stuff about me that wasn't quite true. The person who helped me get the job at Les Schwab, it was a different store, kind of exaggerated my experience, which was no fault of my own. I didn't know that he was exaggerating my experience to this person, but I was basically told that I could do a bunch of stuff that I couldn't do. And then I show up and ask me to do it. And I was really slow at it because I hadn't been working in the shop. I had been working on changing tires, and I was really efficient, really good at changing tires, no matter what size. But as far as like brake jobs and things like that, I wasn't very quick. I was very quick at doing lift kits because every time one rolled into our store, they would put me on it. And as you do things, you just get faster, but he didn't know that. So he was giving me I'm not justifying the way that he was talking to me or anything, because it was, today it would be called bullying, but it was really, he was just working me over, which in that company, that really wasn't what it was. You'd work someone to death, you'd try to get them to quit or get better. And, it was just a normal thing at the time. So I'm sitting in church and I'm thinking, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk to this guy and I'm going to get fired because I'm going to blow up at him. I was sitting in church and they were talking about Luke 17:3, and it says, "So watch yourselves. If your brother or sister sins against you, rebuke them. And if they repent, forgive them." And so what that means is if they sin against you, so if they treat you bad, if they say something to you, and this is my interpretation, you can interpret it however you want, you need to confront them. And it says, even if they sin against you 7 times in a day, come back to you saying they repent, then you must forgive them, right? And so this is what's running through my mind. This is my thought process in this whole situation that happened last week. And I couldn't do anything about it because it's a relationship that I don't have any control over. It'd be detrimental to the company if I went to go talk to this person who has said this about me. I haven't talked to this person in months, but I send emails to them. That's the only type of talk that I have had is, here's a quote. This is for your customer. This is your price. Thank you. That's it. Like 1-sentence responses. And then that came across as I was arrogant and cocky. And every time that I've been in the presence of this individual, I had another individual with me who has not seen this or thought that as well. So it's just really hard to not be able to defend myself, but it will affect what goes on with my work if I do. If I go in there and I rebuke them, if I go in and I talk to them, if I confront them, because that's the hardest part about this whole situation is when someone says something about you that attacks your character most times people won't want to confront it. They won't want to figure it out. And I challenge you to go confront the person if there's an issue, because maybe they don't know what's going on, or maybe they interpreted it something different. I had this all the time when I was coaching. I had kids who thought that I was just a jerk, when in reality, I don't smile. That's not me. I'm just kind of this person who seems gruff all the time. And I'm working on that, but it's really hard to break those habits when you've been doing them for a very long time. Anyway, I've been dealing with that, and it's been really tough for me because I hate it when people attack my character, especially when I know that that's not me. That's not the person that I am. And if you know me for real and you know who I am, you know that I care and that I'm the type of person who will do anything for you as long as you don't do things like that. Tough thing that I've been dealing with. I've just been going through that. I've been working on that. Things have been kind of stressful at work. We've been pretty busy, which is good. That's what we need, right? And this is kind of my side gig. I didn't have an episode out. It took a little bit long. We had issues with the recording, so I got that out onto the podcast. That was a great episode, and we'll talk about that here pretty quick. So if you're dealing with that, I applaud you for working through it. I've been talking to a couple friends, talking about journaling it and things like that. So find someone who can support you and talk it out with, because my wife has always been so supportive of me. My boss has been supportive of me. All the people that I'm around are this great core of supportive people, but it's always in the back of your mind. And even though you say it doesn't bother you and you're trying to let it go, it still does. And that's what I've been kind of dealing with, is trying to figure out a way to let it go. So anyway, let's dive into this bonus coverage with Mikail Farrar. Mikail, I met on TikTok, and he's just a great guy from the get-go. He was talking about, he's a FedEx driver, right? And he started out with his TikTok talking about like how deliveries went and reactions that he gets from customers and things like that, and how he deals with them. And then it kind of morphed into this good deed guy. He's just talking about things that he normally does, but he's posting a picture of it, picking up a turtle that was walking down the middle of the road and rescuing him and taking him to the lake and putting him in there, and just all these things. There's all these great things that he talks about. He does some funny videos where he throws on a wig and he plays, the woman's side and the man's side, talking back and forth and bantering. So if you haven't checked him out, go check him out on TikTok. It's at Fresh to Deaf, Fresh, the letter 2 Deaf. But funny videos, uplifting videos, just lots of good content. And so I met him and I was talking to him, and I was watching one of his videos one day, and he said, success is defined by you. You choose what that is. And it doesn't matter if you're doing something you love. It doesn't matter. That's successful. Don't let someone else define your success. Well, that's the very definition of this show. And even though I'd been following him, I knew that, this was the kind of guy he was. All of a sudden it pops up, and it was crazy. I'm like, I got to text this guy. He's got over, 150,000 followers. He's over like 360 now. He's got tons of followers. He's probably not going to respond. Because this is the way it goes when you get with these bigger people. They don't have time to talk about what they're doing. They're busy. And I just figured, I'll throw it out there, because you know what? When Eli Marcus told me, you never get what you don't ask for, proof it was in the pudding. You got to ask. If you don't ask, you won't get it. So begin asking that. If you have a question, if you have someone who wants something done or things like that, you have to ask. You can't just say, oh, no, it'll never do it, because they won't if you don't ask, right? And so anyway, I reached out to him, and almost immediately Mikail responded to me, which was crazy because, this guy's busy. He's got a lot of stuff going on. He's making TikTok content all the time. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a rap album. He's wrote a book, and he's a FedEx driver. So he does things all day long. And so it was interesting that he just reached right out to me. He's like, yeah, hey, let's do it. So I sent him over my link, and I had him sign up to do an interview, and he was on, and we talked, and it was great because we talked about so many different things. And I had talked to him before the interview about it as well. But let's get to the point here. He talked about drama and things like that, because this is what he's doing on TikTok is really like acting. And he said that, and this really hit home with me because I was a jock. I saw these drama kids, and I was just like, man, they're dorks. And that's what he said. Drama class was for dorks, and I didn't want to be a dork. And that was just the connotation, or the thing that we saw back in the day, was that they're dorks. And, it was the nerdy kids that were studying lines and dressing funny and doing all those things. And I was the exact opposite of that. And so was Mikail. He was a basketball athlete. He went to college to play basketball, or got a scholarship to play basketball. But as you'll listen to the other episode, you'll realize that that thing didn't pan out for him. But didn't mean that he wasn't successful, right? The thought process changes, right? Because 22 years ago, I would have never done this. I would have never got on here. I would have never talked about my feelings. I would have never posted this video online. I would have never done any of these things. But you just start thinking about things and pushing yourself out there, and you find your comfort zone and you're willing to be more vulnerable. That's kind of where I went with him. He did a couple things that were really inspiring. One of the things he talked about was a book he wrote called Rangoon, which is on Amazon. You can check it out. You can find it anywhere. He wrote a book. Well, the reason he wrote a book was he wanted to leave something for his family to think about. He basically wanted them to say that there was more than just, hey, there's this guy just lived in this space, and so that's the thing. It's like, this is our legacy. These are things that we leave behind, and you want to be remembered as that person, whatever that was, good or bad. You probably don't want to be remembered as a bad person, but you do want to be remembered for something. And that was kind of why he wrote that book. I haven't read it yet, and I'm going to, because I think that it's probably pretty good. He talked about how it was kind of like a page turner, so I'm sure it's pretty good. But check it out. Let me know what you think, and maybe I'll do a show on just the book and him talking about the book. The big thing is that he's just a good human. There's a couple other things that he did too, and I'm going to talk about the big one. We'll kind of get into that because I know that this is running a little long, and I don't want it to be too long. And if you really want to know everything about Mikail, you should go back and listen to the episode because it's a really good one. I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. But he did a fundraiser for his boss. That was one of the things that he did because his boss is just like him. And he was on TikTok and he had this reach or whatever. And he did a fundraiser for his boss because he wanted him to go on vacation because he works his butt off. He doesn't go anywhere. He's always trying to help other people out. And, he would give them the shirt off their back if he could. And so he never goes on vacation. So he wanted to do a fundraiser to make him some money to go on vacation. Well, he had it on for a couple of days. I think it was 4 days, and he made $1,500. And the boss got mad. He's like, you need to turn this off. This is embarrassing. I don't want people to know me for this, blah, 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 blah. He says, and I'm not even going to go on vacation. He says, I'm going to donate that money to someone. So he went out and he bought a bunch of Chromebooks and gave them to some kids in the area in Georgia. That's so crazy. I mean, you think about what that guy could have done with $1,400, what he could have, and that was just, 4 days worth of fundraising. If he could have let it gone, he could have been selfish. He could have said, like, I'm taking this, I'm going to Hawaii. I mean, obviously you can't go to Hawaii for $1,400, but if he would have kept it going, he would have had tons of money that he could have used in a selfish way, but chose to give it to someone else. Two things going on there, right? A good human being, two good human beings just working together to create something that makes other people happy. Last thing he talked about was he actually met a kid on his route one day. He was driving down the road and he thought that maybe this kid was just chasing him down as he's driving away. And he thought maybe he might have ran over the kid's skateboard, hit a garbage can or something like that. Cause you've seen a FedEx truck, they're huge and you can't always, I do the same thing in my pickup. I hit way more curves than I want to. And it's annoying just because how long it is, how big it is. And you're just not used to driving that big vehicle around. But, something happens and he thought maybe he did something bad. Well, he stops, the kid catches up and he looks at him and goes, hey, will you mail something for me? And he's like, okay. It's a young kid. And I don't know how many of you have dealt with FedEx or UPS, but he could have very easily said, hey, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, you got to go down to the FedEx store or you got to do this or you got to do that. And just said, mail it that way. But Mikail, being the person that he is, he was just kind of like, yeah, I'll do it. And he thought the kid just, it's kind of like a letter to Santa Claus or something like that. He just wants something mailed. And so the kid comes back with his mom and his brother, and he's got a skateboard and it has the trucks off it and everything. And it's all beat up. And he goes, hey, can you mail this to Tony Hawk? And the mom was behind him, is like, yeah, wink, wink. Can you mail it to Tony Hawk for him? They weren't really expecting anything from it other than the kid just thought, hey, I'm going to mail this to Tony Hawk. It ended up being that he reached out on TikTok and put it out there. You kind of put it into the internet and you're just like, let's see what comes out. Says, anyone knows Tony Hawk? I have this skateboard. This kid on my route wanted me to mail it to him. I have no contact information. I have no nothing. But I'd really like to get it to him. And maybe we can get a shout out from Tony Hawk or something to this kid. Tony Hawk, being the person that he is, saw it. And Mikail used his influence and his reach for good to get that to Tony Hawk. And next thing you know, Tony Hawk's on TikTok doing a video talking about, hey, Cooper, I found this. I got your skateboard and I really appreciate it. I'm going to send you something. And he sent the kid a care package with skateboards and decks and all kinds of cool stuff. And I told Mikail, and you'll hear it on the interview, but I told him, I said, you made that kid's day. You made that kid's year. You made that kid's life. He's going to remember you forever. It's hard when you're in that place of influence because I know that people will look at that as something that's kind of selfish. And that's kind of what Mikail always feels, is that people are like, he did that for himself. He didn't do that for that kid. But you can tell that he's not that type of person. And you can judge that for yourself, but I can tell. I know that there are good people out there. And that's kind of like, it kind of ties all back into, that Bible verse in the beginning. That whole situation that I went through, the whole thing with my boss in the beginning turned out fine. I was scared that I was going to get fired. I was scared that confrontation would cause me to lose my job. I mean, to the point where I went down, and this is kind of where I know it's kind of a fate thing, but I went down to a former boss that I had, and I said, hey, this is what's going to happen today. I'm going to go in and I'm going to confront my boss because he's been just treating me like dirt, and I don't appreciate it. I want to know, like I was covering my butt. I wanted to make sure that I had a job if I got fired for confronting him, like if I blew up or whatever. He goes, it's funny. He goes, I was sitting in church the other day, and he goes, the big thing is you need to talk to him. But I was listening to the pastor, and he was reading Luke 17:3, which is the verse that I was talking about. The same verse that I saw. Isn't that a little ironic? But I was sitting in church, and he was sitting in the same church as me, listening to the same message. And he brought that up, and he cemented that into my mind. I listened to that in church, and then he said the same thing to me, and it was just like, I got to talk to him. I got to confront him. That's all I can do. And so I went back and I confronted him, and everything turned out fine. He didn't know. It didn't give him the right to treat me the way that it did, but he would have never known to stop what he was doing had I not talked to him. He would have continued to do it because I did not confront him. I did not rebuke him, right? Rebuke's a word that we don't know, but that's what it means. It's confront them, talk to them about it, tell them, hey, this is not right. And that's what it is. I was able to move on through that whole situation, which is the hard part for me right now, is I can't confront the person that has said these things about me, because if I do, it will be detrimental to the whole situation. I can't control that, but what I can control is the way that I feel about it, and I'm trying to work through that. I want you to think about that, your daily journeys, what you're dealing with. Can you confront someone? Can you change the way that it goes? It's hard. Trust me, it's hard to go confront someone who's wronged you or said something to you that you didn't want to hear or didn't like. But once you do it, it's freeing. Those good deeds don't go unnoticed. I noticed Mikail off of TikTok. I've seen some really good guests off of TikTok that have responded to me, that I've interviewed, that have been inspirational, and they're just everyday people, and that's what Mikail is. If you haven't followed him, like I said, it's at Fresh, the letter 2, Def on TikTok, and he's got a YouTube channel, same name. I'll link it in the show notes. Check out his book. This is the bonus coverage for Mikail Farrar, and I wanted to give a shout out to John Hutton, who has designed my new logo. If you have seen that yet, follow me at wes.tankersley on Instagram. You'll see this new logo. I just posted it the other day. Pretty exciting. It's kind of a combination that encompasses me as a person and things that I like. Have a great day, and thank you for tuning in to Shaping Success with me, Wes Tankersley. Again, if you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please like, share, and review. Have a great day.